MASH cast, 1972. Where are they now? What happens when the laughter that helped America survive Vietnam follows its cast into decades of real-world firefights, stock market coups, and late-night confessions? Picture Alan Alda boxing Parkinson's into a corner at 89, Mike Farrell stitching up a guerrilla under sniper fire, and Jamie Farr turning Toledo pride and a rack of polka-dot dresses into millions for children's hospitals. Add Loretta Swit raiding a midnight puppy mill, Wayne Rogers out-earning hedge fund titans, and David Ogden Stiers conducting symphonies while guarding Hollywood's most private secret. These are the battles after the ceasefire. Bigger, messier, and shockingly human. Stay with me as we count down the 10 fates that prove a sitcom about war can still change the world long after the cameras stop. Buckle up, because every number lands harder than the last. Number 10, Major Charles Winchester III, David Ogden Stiers. Winchester arrived at the 4077th, brandishing a silk handkerchief and a mind tuned to Mozart, instantly turning Hawkeye's slapdash operating room into a symphony of surgical precision. Off-camera, David Ogden Stiers matched that refinement. Yale-trained, fluent in French cuisine, and rumored to memorize entire Beethoven movements between takes. What fans never guessed was the private concerto he carried, a secret he feared would slam studio doors shut. Stiers was gay in a decade when a single tabloid whisper could ice a Disney contract. So he wrapped himself in voice acting gigs that kept his face out of lens range and landed him immortality as Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast, Governor Ratcliffe in Pocahontas, and Jumba in Lilo and Stitch. Between sessions, he conducted the Newport Symphony, wielding the baton with a surgeon's confidence. Audiences swore they saw Winchester's posture behind every downbeat. In 2009, white-bearded and financially bulletproof, he finally set the record straight. I am, quite proudly, gay. The revelation barely ripped through Hollywood, yet freed him to spend his final years advocating LGBTQ youth scholarships while recording audiobooks that still raise goosebumps. Bladder cancer struck in 2018, but Stiers faced it like a maestro taking his last bow, composed, grateful, and still correcting anyone who mispronounced arpeggio. If the camp snob could drop a decades-old mask and earn louder applause, wait until you hear how the villain everyone loved to hate clawed his way out of ferret face infamy. Number 9, Major Frank Burns, Larry Linville. Frank marched across the screen, sneering about regulations, preaching morality, and secretly canoodling with hot lips behind supply tents. Larry Linville built that hypocrisy out of the 10 worst people I've ever met, then doubled down by perfecting Frank's nasal whimper, an octave so piercing crew members joked it sterilized clamps. But portraying America's favorite weasel burned through Linville's patience. By season 5, he declared the role a closed case file and refused a lucrative contract extension. CBS panicked. Linville packed fishing gear. In exit interviews, he roasted the network for turning a darkly satirical show into what he called comfort food, a swipe fans still debate in Reddit trenches. His post-MASH years became a blur of guest appearances. A corrupt televangelist on Murder, She Wrote, a lovesick dentist on The Love Boat, even an alien botanist who devoured victims with photosynthetic tentacles. Anything to dodge Frank's shadow. Ironically, convention lines stretched longest when he leaned into ferret face selfies, signing photos with "to a better surgeon than Burns." Cancer removed part of his lung in '98, yet he joked about replacing it with a whistle to stay on pitch. Pneumonia finally surged past the antibiotics in 2000, claiming him at 60. Offset colleagues remember a soft-spoken prankster who always apologized if fans recoiled at his grin. If Frank's sneer hid a contrite soul, the sidekick who quit even earlier turned a legal gamble into a Wall Street fortune. Number 8, Captain Trapper. John McIntyre, Wayne Rogers. Trapper matched Hawkeye drink for drink and wisecrack for wisecrack. But Wayne Rogers bristled as creative focus drifted to Alda's increasingly philosophical scripts. Armed with a Princeton economics degree and a rarely mentioned law license, Rogers pored over his contract, discovered a loophole about surgical roles versus ensemble, and sued CBS for freedom, an act some insiders called career suicide. Instead, the lawsuit catapulted him onto The Tonight Show couch as America's newest renegade. Rogers invested his settlement in barren Los Angeles lots that soon sprouted strip malls, then flipped those profits into hospital real estate trusts. By the 90s, analysts labeled him an oracle of medical office REites. Fox Business crowned him a commentator. Young traders tuned in more for trapper quips than ticker tips. When he died in 2015, from complications of pneumonia ironically similar to Linville's, financial obituaries noted a net worth estimated at $75 million, dwarfing many A-list contemporaries. If ditching the world's hottest sitcom minted a stock market titan, faith itself would need triage in the next dusty tent. Number 7. Father Francis Mulcahy, William Christopher. The bespectacled padre soothed shell-shocked troops with psalms and slapdash hymns on a battered field organ. William Christopher needed that serenity offset. His younger son Ned was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder before mainstream therapies existed. Christopher and his wife wrote Mixed Blessings, a raw account of tantrums, breakthroughs, and the guilt that gnawed at them whenever strangers stared. Its royalties seeded early intervention classrooms across Southern California. Between episodes, he lobbied lawmakers for insurance parity and volunteered at respite camps, sometimes dressed in clerics because it calmed nervous children. Christopher continued voice work into his 70s, even lampooning televangelists in satire sketches to fundraise for autism research. In late 2016, small cell carcinoma spread. He filmed a goodbye video urging parents never to surrender curiosity. On December 31st, he passed quietly, a rosary twined through his fingers and jazz softly playing. He believed swing rhythms reminded angels to dance. If gentleness carried Mulcahy through a parental minefield, command itself buckled under unexpected crossfire next. Number 6. Colonel Sherman T. Potter, Harry Morgan. Viewers embraced Potter's cavalry anecdotes and homespun wisdom, so it stunned tabloids when, in 1996, police responded to a frantic 911 call at Morgan's Brentwood home. The 81-year-old actor had allegedly slapped his wife during an argument over misplaced medication. Mugshot flashes threatened to replace decades of wholesome publicity. In court, Morgan forwent pleas, accepted 6 months of domestic violence counseling, and released a statement calling the incident "my deepest shame." Friends say he attended every session early, bringing coffee for fellow attendees. After charges were dismissed, he returned to fan conventions armed with a new joke. Pop got grounded for a temper tantrum. The line diffused tension so effectively that autograph demand spiked, a paradox that left publicists scrambling for extra photos. Morgan spent retirement painting watercolors of cavalry mounts. His last canvas, Bugle at Dawn, still hangs in the Smithsonian's American Television Wing. He died in 2011 at 96, whispering to family, "I hear revel, time to ride." If the camp's moral anchor could slip, the prankster surgeon next stitched real arteries beneath rebel gunfire. Number 5. Captain B.J. Honeycutt, Mike Farrell. On screen, B.J. pranked surgeons with fishing hooks and pockets. Off-screen, Mike Farrell lugged duffel bags of medical supplies through Salvadoran jungles. In 1985, Amnesty International inserted him into El Salvador as a witness. He wound up assisting a desperate surgeon, extracting shrapnel from rebel commander Nidia Diaz under flashlight beams and sniper pops. That act softened lines between government and guerrillas, nudging eventual peace accords. Back home, Farrell fronted death penalty focus, debating governors like incoming wounded. If a body is worth saving, why not a soul? And nearly flipped California's execution policy. Hollywood never fully let go. He recurred on Desperate Housewives, voiced Superman's dad, and slipped anti-capital punishment Easter eggs into scripts. In 2016, he starred in a viral PSA imploring electoral college members to reconsider casting ballots for Donald Trump, earning both death threats and thank you letters. He archives every note, filing them alphabetically beside jungle field x-rays to remind himself activism always leaves scar tissue. If BJ braved hot lead for strangers, the teddy bear corporal chose exile to keep his own sanity intact. Number 4. Corporal Radar O'Reilly, Gary Berghoff. Radar's preternatural helicopter sense came with real-world burdens. Berghoff battled insomnia, anxiety, and a congenital hand condition he hid behind clipboards. Directors even staged blocking, so cameras seldom caught his 3 shortened fingers. By season 7, emotional fatigue plus a crumbling marriage forced a plea for honorable discharge. Producers crafted the tear-soaked 2-parter Goodbye Radar, which still ranks among TV's saddest farewells. Off-grid in Connecticut, Berghoff reinvented himself. Wildlife painter whose duck portraits fetch 4-figure bids, jazz drummer hosting riverside jam sessions, and serial inventor with patents for hurricane-proof bird feeders and splash-free toilet seat lifts, inspired by field hospital hygiene nightmares. He also fronted a PBS nature series, but canceled after a single season, citing an urge to listen to frogs rather than editors. Rare convention appearances spark kilometer-long lines. Witnesses swear he still predicts passing news choppers seconds before rotors rumble overhead. If Radar escaped showbiz noise, Hot Lips redirected its megaphone toward creatures with no voice at all. Number 3. Major Margaret Hot Lips, Houlihan, Loretta Swit. Swit arrived as a blonde punchline. She left as television's first feminist in fatigues. Post-finale, she turned that fire outward, storming fur fashion shows in red paint blood, smuggling breeding dogs out of Midwest puppy mills, and hosting pop-up spay and neuter clinics across hurricane zones. Her watercolors, neon portraits of rescue animals with soulful eyes, sell for thousands, every cent channeled to shelters. Sweet once rappelled into a collapsed New York tenement to rescue a trapped pit bull. Paramedics found her coaxing the terrified dog with a granola bar, while firefighters stabilized debris overhead. In 1981, she nearly headlined Cagney and Lacey. The pilot featured Sweet as Christine Cagney, but CBS refused to release her from MASH obligations. Sweet shrugs at the lost payday. Margaret finished stronger than Cagney started. Now 87, she ends every keynote by flashing a peace sign wide enough to mimic bunny ears and murmuring, "Kindness is camouflage nobody sees coming." If fury turned to fierce compassion, the flamboyant corporal at number 2 spun chiffon into a civic legacy big enough for a city to wear. Number 2, Corporal Max Klinger, Jamie Farr. Klinger's polka-dot dresses were outlandish, but the dog tags jangling underneath were genuine. Farr served in Korea with the U.S. Army before Hollywood found him. Producers asked him to pick a hometown for his character. He chose Toledo, ensuring the word "mudhens" echoed through primetime. Post-series, he battled typecasting, so he launched Travelin' Far, a radio minute whisking listeners to Istanbul bazaars or Yukon glaciers with witty airfare hacks. Toledo repaid the exposure tenfold, naming the Jamie Farr Park the Jamie Farr Toledo Classic LPGA Tournament, raising over $12 million for children's hospitals, and gifting him a lifetime supply of hot dogs from Tony Paco's, where Klinger once signed buns on air. Farr still MCs charity telethons in vintage Klinger couture. Every dress auction funds veterans' scholarships. At 90, he insists he'll retire when the Mudhens win the World Series. Insiders note the odds are long, guaranteeing many more sachets for a cause. If Klinger leveraged camp ridicule into citywide philanthropy, the surgeon at number 1 has spent 40 years turning personal tremors into global inspiration. Number 1, Captain Hawkeye Pierce, Alan Alda. Hawkeye wielded humor sharper than any scalpel, but Alan Alda wielded curiosity sharper than both. After the finale shattered ratings records, Alda told studios he'd only accept roles that teach me something scary. That credo led him to Woody Allen's morally ambiguous dramas, political satire on The West Wing, and an Oscar-nominated turn in The Aviator. Yet, his most daring act surfaced off camera, translating astrophysics into plain English. Hosting Scientific American Frontiers for PBS, Alda grilled Nobel laureates with flannel shirt candor, then co-founded the Alda Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook University, where physicists learn improv to explain quarks without equations. In 2018, he stunned morning television by revealing a Parkinson's diagnosis, live, then demonstrated boxing drills doctors prescribed to slow neural decline, effectively turning fear into a public tutorial. He podcasts weekly on Clear Plus Vivid, unpacking empathy with everyone from Jane Goodall to street magicians, and still drafts screenplays longhand because ink listens better than keyboards. Now 89, he credits longevity to curiosity, caffeine, and laughter, louder than tremors. Hollywood once asked if he'd cameo as Hawkeye again. Alda quipped, only if Hawkeye's still refusing to salute. That rebel spirit keeps him, and us, marching forward. From courtroom coups to jungle triage, canceled sitcoms to Disney castles, late life arrests to midnight animal rescues, these 10 destinies prove MASH never rolled credits. It redeployed. Laughter dulled war's blade back then. Compassion hones our scalpel now. So raise an olive drab martini to every prank, protest, and painting that still stitches this cast to millions of hearts. Which transformation stunned you most? Alda sparring with Parkinson's, Rogers conquering Wall Street, or Swit storming puppy mills? Drop your pick in the comments below. And if you crave more untold Hollywood turnarounds, punch that like button and hit subscribe so you're first in line for the next reveal. Remember Hawkeye's foxhole wisdom. The only thing worse than war is forgetting we're still human. Keep that line close. The world still needs medics of the spirit. Dismissed.